You know, when we talk about hope, what do we really mean? It's a word we use all the time, maybe a little casually, but when you look at it through the lens of psychology, hope is one of the most powerful forces we have. It's so much more than just a feeling, it's actually a strategy for living. So, let's start with a really common misconception. Is having hope basically the same as just wishing for the best? It's so easy to get those two mixed up, but the difference between them? Well, that's where the real power of hope is hiding. See, wishful thinking is completely passive. It's that feeling of waiting for good things to happen, almost like the outcome is totally out of your hands. But hope is an active process. It's the belief that you can make things happen, that you have a say in the outcome through your own plans and your own actions. To really get a handle on this, we need to step away from our everyday definition and look at how psychology actually sees hope. It's a concept that researchers have been studying for a long time, and what they found is that it's way more complex than a simple emotion. Okay, so psychologically, hope is defined as a dynamic, cognitive, motivational system. I know that sounds a little academic, right? But let's just break that down. It basically means that hope is a way of thinking, a whole mental framework that actively motivates us to go after our goals. It's not just a feeling that washes over you, it's a process you engage in. So if hope is a system, then how does it work? Well, the good news is there's a really practical framework that breaks it all down into clear, simple parts. It almost gives us a formula for what it truly means to be hopeful. And that framework is called hope theory. It was developed by a psychologist named C.R. Snyder, and his work totally changed how we understand hope. He defined it as a motivational state that's built on 3 key pillars. Let's take a look at what they are. So first, you need goals. You have to have a destination in mind. Second, you need something called agency. That's your willpower, the belief in yourself that you can actually get there. And third, you need pathways, the specific routes you can map out to reach your goal. See, it's not enough to just want something. You have to believe you can do it and have a plan for how. And this brings us to a really simple but pretty profound equation. Hope equals your willpower, that's your motivation to act, plus what Snyder called way power, which is your ability to see the different paths to get where you're going. You absolutely need both to have true hope. Okay, so now that we have a better idea of what hope is, why is it so important? Well, the benefits of cultivating this way of thinking are just staggering. They impact nearly every part of our lives, from our minds to our bodies. Study after study shows that higher levels of hope are linked to better outcomes across the board. We're talking about better psychological well-being, a boost in physical health, and even stronger connections with other people. Let's look a little closer. Psychologically, people with high hope report more positive emotions and lower rates of depression and anxiety. Physically, they tend to have fewer chronic illnesses. And socially, they feel less lonely and build stronger relationships. The impact is truly all-encompassing. And maybe the single most powerful finding of all comes from a huge long-term study. It found that having a greater sense of hope was directly tied to a reduced risk of death from any cause. Just think about that for a second. Hope doesn't just make life feel better, it might actually help it last longer. Now, this might all sound wonderful for people who are just naturally hopeful, but what about the rest of us? Well, here's the most empowering part of this whole story. Hope isn't something you're just born with. It is a skill, and it's a skill that anyone can learn and develop. It's so important to let that sink in. Hope is a learned behavior, not a fixed trait like your eye color. C.R. Snyder's research made it really clear that with some intentional practice, anyone can actively become a more hopeful person. So, how do we actually practice it? First, set clear goals and then break them down into smaller pieces. Second, build up your willpower by focusing on your strengths. Third, and this one is absolutely crucial, develop multiple pathways. Don't just have a plan A. Brainstorm a plan B and a plan C. Expecting roadblocks is a huge part of the process. And finally, practice reframing your thoughts when you feel stuck. So, we've talked about what hope is, why it matters so much, and how you can actually build it. Now, the final step is to put it into action. It all comes back to that core idea of having a plan, or even better, having multiple plans. C.R. Snyder himself said it perfectly. He said, multiple routes to the desired goals are absolutely essential for successful hopeful thought. The key isn't believing the path will be easy. It's knowing that when one path gets blocked, you have the resilience and the creativity to find another one. That flexibility, that's everything. So I'll leave you with this question. Think about a goal in your own life. It can be big or small. What's one new pathway, just one different approach you could try, starting today? Because that single thought, that's the first step in actively creating hope for yourself.